Okay, it's to the point where I can't even deal with how good this movie is. Like, seriously. So, anyway, Zack Snyder's Justice League. All the spoilers. Let's go. Oh, what's up, guys? This is going to be kind of a laid back type deal, spoiler review. Um, I've watched this movie 3 times now. 3 times. My son, who is celebrating his birthday this week, happy birthday, Mike. He came to visit, and we watched this movie together. Like I said, this was the 3rd time I watched it, and it just gets better with every viewing. And my non-spoiler review, if you remember, I gave this movie a Trapped on an Island. We might be going in unicorn territory, but I'll reserve that until I give it a few months, and maybe I'll come back and do a revisited review when it finally comes to 4K. And first off, let's talk about that. That aspect ratio, because I did hear some mixed opinions about the 4:3 aspect ratio. I'm kind of a geek when it comes to that stuff. First and foremost, I like the director's intended vision. I don't care what it was, but as long as it's what the director wanted. And the 4:3, it makes you think back to like VHS and the black bars on the sides. But I think the way to look at it is, it's still widescreen, but it's a vertical widescreen. If you look at that frame, if you were to kind of zoom in on it a little bit and bring it to a 1.8.5, you could still get a nice full picture in there. But if you back it up, you see more information on the top and the bottom. And that's just the full frame of the IMAX aspect ratio. It's the entire picture. So that doesn't bother me at all. And really, within 5 minutes, I was already glued into what was going on, the story. I wasn't really paying attention too much to the actual black bars on the sides. Plus, I think it just makes the film that much more unique, and it separates it from, the Justice League version quite nicely, actually. But also, before we dig deep into the spoilers, I just got to say, what Junkie XL did with this movie, this might be one of the most cohesive scores for a comic book film I have ever heard. And I really think Junkie XL's score is the glue to this whole thing. It really kind of weaves everything together along the way. And, I challenged myself, could I stop after 2 hours when I was watching this? And I couldn't. I just constantly would want to keep going because of, the chapter stops, but also because of Junkie XL's score. How he kind of blends scenes into each other. I'll go ahead and say it because, people are going to have this debate, Marvel and DC, till the end of time. But I think DC has Marvel in terms of scores. For me, anyway. I can't think of too many scores in the Marvel Universe that I really love, especially in the MCU. Yeah, the Danny Elfman Spider-Man score is awesome. And I do like the score for both Hulk movies, actually. The Avengers has a unique theme, but I'd put Junkie XL's score just for this movie alone miles and miles above everything that's been put out by Marvel. And that's a controversial opinion, but man, I'm telling you, there's been moments where I wanted to cry listening to his score. Take, for instance, the scene at the end of the movie with the Flash and how he is basically going so fast that he goes back in time. And that particular musical piece is so emotional and so beautiful sounding that it just really gets you there. And you can't help but just get lost in the scene. And it's a nice moment for the Flash too. But anyway, starting in the spoiler section here, and that's a spoiler too, because a lot of this movie, it's the same plot, but there's a lot of differences along the way, a lot of added scenes along the way, and scenes that we've never seen before. But talking about similar scenes, the Themyscira scene at the beginning, it's just lightly touched upon in the previous version. Man, talk about an awesome start to this movie. And you want to talk about strong women and how to build strong women characters? This is how you do it right here. This isn't these women, these Amazonians, just screaming, "I am woman, hear me roar." No, they're not trying to throw it into the viewer's face. It just feels natural. But what really makes this scene work so well is I freaking love that scene. Steppenwolf first comes up on screen, and you know, there's just this buildup because you see these mother boxes reacting. The patience that Zack Snyder takes with all these scenes, I think, had such a strong purpose because it just built that tension more and more. It wasn't just patience and slow motion for runtime's sake, you know, there was a purpose there. But Steppenwolf talks about fear, and I just love that reaction. And this was a total 300 moment. When Connie Nielsen's character, Hippolyta, she says, you know, to the group, "Show your fear." But she says it just like Leonidas would say it. And then the response is, "We have no fear." And man, I'm just fist pumping the whole time during this scene. It's just so badass. And then, you know, there's this struggle to keep the mother box away from Steppenwolf. And it's just this constant chase. And the Amazonians, they're just thrusting the mother box forward constantly, almost like a football play. Steppenwolf, this is a great entrance for him in this movie because just to show how much of a threat he is. Because, you know, as badass as these women are, they lose. Steppenwolf handles them pretty easily actually, but they're still very strong women. That's my case in point. Strong women can still be defeated. You know, you don't have to win everything. Let the story serve its purpose, and that's what they do. Now, I'm not going to repeat a lot of the same story beats that I did in the non-spoiler review. You know, I could go through Bruce Wayne's journey, you know, meeting with Arthur for the first time, and basically just trying to get the team together. I don't need to talk about that anymore because I did that in the non-spoiler review. I just want to talk about, you know, the end Joker scene, and I really want to talk about Cyborg, Victor Stone, because I touched on how he is really kind of the core of the movie. He is probably one of the most important people in the movie. And most people agree with that. Like, Twitter is just a buzz about this movie right now. And I think I see more mentions of Cyborg than anybody. I did have, I think, one person on Twitter state that they didn't really care for Cyborg. And I just didn't understand that because this is an extremely important and, more importantly, emotional character throughout this. I love his arc, though, how most of the movie he's very pessimistic. He's angry at his father. He's angry at his situation. But it's the Justice League that brings him around and becomes his family. So at the end of the movie, he's presented with this option to basically die so he can find happiness. He can go with his mother and his father and join them and be whole again and not be broken. And it's just one of the most beautiful moments in the movie because he says, "I'm not alone anymore. I have a family now." And he chooses to stay with the Justice League. You know, he's found his purpose. And none of that shit was in the Justice League version. You know, the heart was completely just ripped right out of the story. And this movie is just full of heart. I've never seen such a cohesive team of people work together like this. This is a Justice League movie that I never ever thought we would get just because of how much of a travesty the previous version was. I'm still in shock by it, honestly. And side note, I will say, this was my son's first time watching it. My son is a Marvel fan. I mean, 100% through and through Marvel guy. We have debates constantly with each other all the time. He doesn't really like the DCEU that much at all. After seeing this movie, he can't stop thinking about it. He's like in love with this movie. And that just makes me so happy because I'm the DC guy in the family. But yeah, let's press on. The Wonder Woman scene was really badass just because of how it was presented. It felt like The Dark Knight quite a little bit, just a buildup of the bank robbers coming in. This was a different Diana, you know, from that moment where she thrusts through those doors and they just explode. And then, you know, you get that great Zack Snyder slow motion, which I think is another reason why a lot of people don't like Zack Snyder. He is a polarizing director. Some people don't like all that slow motion stuff. To me, it's almost like art. It's just visually artistic, and I like that. And I think, like I said, I think the slow motion kind of served the emotion in the movie, actually. Slow things down a bit and let the viewer process it. Everything was in a hurry in the previous version. Not in this one at all. You know, you could even argue that this one is a little bit too slow in some scenes, but for the most part, not really at all. I think it just really accents Diana's movements because once she busts through that door, every movement she makes, it's like bullet fast. And I've never seen Wonder Woman in this fashion before. You know, kick-ass this much before. And I think this is probably my favorite portrayal of Wonder Woman so far. She is amazing in a lot of scenes in this movie. If I can bounce forward to when she fights Steppenwolf, one of the highlights of the movie, actually, I think her score, as far as like action scores go, is easily the most infectious. Like, you can't help but love that sound. You got that, like this lady's chant over it, almost like an Egyptian type chant. And then, you know, those earth-shattering drums. She just has such a cool score, and it doesn't hurt the character whatsoever. And she's probably the strongest, second only to Superman. You know, I think, personally, she could probably take Steppenwolf by herself. I don't think Steppenwolf is as strong as, like, say, Thanos. Thanos is much stronger than Steppenwolf. I don't know if that's true in the comics, but, you know, if I'm comparing this movie to what Thanos was in Endgame, Steppenwolf is not as strong, but that doesn't matter. He's still a very capable villain. It's amazing to me that this guy went from just a stock CGI villain that was completely forgettable to, I think, one of the better villains to come along in a long time. And I liked his story, you know, how he betrayed Darkseid, and there was this constant tug of war between the two, and, you know, constantly trying to redeem himself, prove himself. And you get the feeling that there's no way this guy's ever going to prove himself. I mean, the debt that he owes is way too big. But eventually Darkseid tells him, you bring me all 3 mother boxes and we can let bygones be bygones. Now let's dig deeper into Superman's return. We kind of scratched the surface last time. Just seeing him in the black costume, which makes sense to me too, because it's a regeneration suit. The black suit is called the recovery suit, and it's just really to help strengthen Superman after he comes back from the dead. It's more medicinal than anything, but it just looks so badass. You know, I think there's a misconception that the black suit could mean he could be a bad Superman. And there's a moment in this movie where he does kind of come off as a villain. You know, they all have to fight him, but that scene's great because it just shows how strong Superman is. But no, that's just because he's confused at the time. It has nothing to do with the black suit. He's not even wearing it at the time. But like I said, it's just a recovery suit, and I'm so glad that Zack Snyder introduced the suit into this, because this is something that's in the comics, and you usually don't think you're going to see something like a black suit Superman. But if you remember back in Man of Steel, there's one scene where you actually see him in the black suit. But, you know, we see him put on the suit, and then he flies up to the sun because we know that the sun gives Superman his power. And then when he comes back, you know, after the gang's all fighting at the end of the movie, Steppenwolf, it's very similar to the Joss Whedon version in that when he comes back, Superman just completely cleans house. He's more brutal in the Snyder version, you know, but he's still beating the living shit out of Steppenwolf like it's no problem at all. But then he kind of shares the love a little bit. You know, it's kind of like an alley-oop. You know, he tosses him at Arthur, and then Arthur bounces him over to Wonder Woman and back and forth. But then the complete badass scene was when Superman punches him, and as he's going through, Wonder Woman chops his head off, and his head goes right into the other dimension, right at Darkseid's foot, and I was cheering. Oh my God, this is freaking amazing. I think the Justice League should have all just been like this to Darkseid, as Steppenwolf's head flew right through that portal. But the scene's also very important because Victor has to separate the mother boxes. And so he has to have Superman come and help him. And it's another one of those great team effort scenes. You know, I like that the team aspect is very strong in this movie. And every character, like I said in the non-spoiler review, they all get their moments. Flash is so much better in this movie than the last one. The comedy's toned down quite a bit, but really, I think he has more emotional scenes in this. You know, the scenes with his father. But really, my favorite is at the end, which I was referring to earlier, when he has to pretty much turn back time. And he had just been injured before that, you know? But it's probably one of the most emotional scenes in the whole movie. And it doesn't hurt that Junkie XL's score is just bathed over the scene. And I literally wanted to start crying when I heard it. It's just such a beautiful scene. Okay, now let's jump into the Joker scene, and I freaking love this scene. This was chapter 7. This was the epilogue, and there was this scene earlier with Cyborg right before they were about to save Superman, and he gets this flashback vision. Kind of like the scene that Galadriel in Lord of the Rings gets, the possible future. Same type deal here. And, in this particular future, Darkseid has won. He's taken over. You see this image of Superman holding this dead body, which I think it's Lois. You see Arthur or some Atlanteans getting killed by Darkseid. I mean, Darkseid is cleaning house in this dream sequence. And then there's this image of like Superman with the bat cowl in his hand, just like floating towards the viewer. All that great dystopian type stuff. Here's my thinking on this flashback stuff, because I said in my Batman v Superman Revisited that I think this Batman nightmare sequence is gonna present itself again, and maybe again and again in Justice League 2 and 3. And what I think is we're gonna get little bits here and there, and I think in 2 we might get another big scene, and then in 3 it's all gonna come together and make sense. Hopefully we get a Justice League 2 and 3. I think with the positive response of this movie, we probably will. I'm hoping and praying. That's par for the course in Zack Snyder's movies too. You don't really get this type of stuff as much in other comic book films, but Zack Snyder, he likes to put subtext in his movies. He likes to put ambiguity in his movies, and it can rub people the wrong way because, like I stated earlier, I think people like to have things explained and spelled out to them, and I'm the opposite of that. I love all the subtext that Zack Snyder likes to put in his movies. But jumping to the end, we see the Deathstroke scene, Lex Luthor, and he's basically telling Deathstroke to kill Batman. He wants to do a deal to kill Batman. Nothing too crazy in that one, but really the big thing, you see Batman in the nightmare getup again, in this like Mad Max post-apocalyptic type setting. And finally, we see the Joker sitting on the front of the car. And by the way, very interesting scene because we see, a future Mira, Flash, Deathstroke again, and Cyborg. I really dug Mira in this movie, and I didn't think that I would care that much about the character. I'm not really thinking about all the controversy with Amber Heard, but I think she did a good job in the role, and I love the scene where she's fighting Steppenwolf and she uses that like water as a weapon, because he's in their world right now, so they got the water and she like thrust it into his eyes and you see that blood coming out, and it was pretty badass actually. But anyway, I digress. Jumping back to the Joker scene, this exchange between the Joker and Batman is one of the most badass freaking scenes I have seen in years, and I'm glad I watched it 3 times because I really wanted to kind of decipher it on the third watch. But the Joker, he's always playing with Batman. He doesn't care that Batman is hurting. He's not afraid of Batman. He just likes toying with him. And he even brings up, your adopted son. And he's talking about Robin. He's talking about Jason Todd, and you can tie that to Batman v Superman, where you see Bruce, he passes Robin's suit with the Joker's graffiti on it. So the Joker has just been a constant thorn in Batman's side forever. And you can tell this is a very angry Bruce. He's fed up. He's had enough. And he basically tells him, I'm going to fucking kill you. This is the first time we've heard Batman say fuck, I think, too, which is awesome. And then there's like a little reference to Harley Quinn, too, when Batman tells Joker, she died in my arms. Joker doesn't even care about Harley Quinn. He doesn't care about anything. But a word on Leto's performance, I think he redeemed himself with this scene. The more I think about it, a lot of people want him to oversell it and try to maybe give more of a Heath Ledger or a Jack Nicholson, just kind of over the top, over the edge. And those performances were amazing. They were great for what they were. I liked that Leto kind of dialed it back a little bit. Even his laugh was different, and I've heard some mixed opinions on that. I even heard like one guy, I think on Instagram, state that could be because Batman actually, crushed his larynx. So maybe that affected his voice. I don't know. It's just a theory though. But I just liked his performance in this. And more importantly, I liked the quiet moments, the way he would just kind of sit there and stare at Batman with this kind of half grin. And just the dialogue was really great too. Like, who's going to give you a reach around? Just great stuff out of left field. And that's what you want. You want stuff out of left field with the Joker. We've seen so many different interpretations of the character, and it's nice to keep the viewer on their toes and keep the character unpredictable. And I think that's what Jared Leto did. He did a great job with this, actually. I was happy for the guy because he's taken a lot of flack for Suicide Squad, which I still think was not his fault. But also, like, the blood around his mouth, it makes me wonder if, like, is that from Batman? Like, Batman beat the shit out of him? And, you know, Joker, he's constantly taking a beating anyway. But yeah, guys, this freaking movie, I've been constantly obsessed with it. I think it's easily the best DCEU movie now. I don't think Zack Snyder's made a bad DCEU movie, or a bad movie in general, at all. And I say, please, please, please restore the Snyderverse. This guy needs to be the leader of this whole thing. Now that Marvel is done, you know, their whole run with Endgame and all that, I think it's a little bit more digestible to have Zack Snyder's vision, that darker vision, you know, because we have that Marvel vision. Warner Brothers screwed up big time because Batman v Superman didn't make that much money, so they were like, oh, we need to be Marvel. We need to make a movie like Marvel. So let's make all these movies with this comic relief and all this stuff. Thank God Zack Snyder was able to get this released. Actually, thank God for you. Thank God for the fans that were able to make this happen. This is still unprecedented. I'm still in shock that not only were we given Zack's true vision, but we were given a 4-hour vision, and I wanted more of it. I really did. So, yeah, I'm thinking this is going to be a unicorn rating. I really am. Okay, like I said, I'm going to keep it at a Trapped on an Island right now, but this movie was amazing. This movie is like, wow. Movies can do this? Anyway, guys, that's my spoiler review. Let me know what you guys thought of Zack Snyder's Justice League in the comments. Be sure to come over to Killer Flicks. We'll talk horror all day and every day, and on Fridays, we do Free For All Fridays. Follow me at Drumdums on all my socials. Support me on Patreon. Buy me a coffee. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. Have a great day, and Drumdum out.